Hence your cue, Lawrence. Go.
Hello, welcome to The Right Ways, a podcast series that has been specially produced for mentoring as a culture. Today we have with us Kevin Khan, who's going to talk to us about introducing mentoring as a strategy into business and organizations. Kevin, why are we talking about this today?
So, mentoring is a very powerful intervention where it's an option for organizations to develop employees all the way from the bottom all the way to the top. So, it's something that is useful as a part of employee benefits, attracting talent, retaining talent, and it also gives the organization the opportunity to spot high potentials as well. So not many organizations use mentoring, but it's a great opportunity to look at how we can have conversations and encourage employees to look at their career trajectory, learn new skills, and also try new things and have variety to the work.
You know, I just read an SBF survey, right? National Business Survey, and there are three top concerns that were raised, right? One was manpower, which at 97%. The other one was increasing business costs at 66% and business continuity at 67%. So why would businesses and organizations want to indulge in mentoring as a strategy inside when they have so many other things to actually deal with?
So mentoring is an opportunity to maintain and retain talent, right? So cost of business is rising everywhere around the world. That's a given. But if you weigh up the cost of having to replace employees against the cost of keeping loyal and talented employees, the costs outweigh the benefits.
Yeah.
So if you can just imagine, if you had to replace someone, if you can replace someone in 3 months, that's really, really good. But if we want to be realistic, it's a 6 to 7, 8 month period. Because when you think about it, somebody resigns, you have to advertise for the role. Then the application comes in. Then you have to shortlist. Then you have to do first round interviews. Then you have to do second round interviews. And in some organizations, you might have a third round interview. Then you have to make an offer. The person accepts or rejects, and then you have to go to plan B, make another offer. Then the person has to resign. They have to serve out their notice period, and then they onboard. So that period is almost like 6 to 7 months already. What is the cost to the business in terms of replacing an employee as opposed to keeping them and developing them?
Yeah, you know, I totally believe in mentoring. I'm an strong advocate of it. I've actually gone through a lot of organizations that have done it, and I've seen it being very successful, right? So how would you advise business owners and leaders in organizations to start?
So the whole reason for mentoring is to help people shortcut and not make the same mistakes. So it's the same thing with creating a mentoring program within an organization. Go talk to another organization that has actually implemented mentoring. Find out what went well, what didn't go well, what would they do over again. Ask them all those questions so that when you come back to your organization to try and implement it, you can avoid the mistakes that other organizations have made. That's the whole premise of mentoring as well. People want to know, how can I advance my career and not make the same mistakes as my predecessors or people that were in similar positions? So do exactly why you're implementing that. Have a conversation with other organizations, learn and share knowledge.
What about the people inside? Because some of them, they could be struggling inside the organization itself. And the culture itself, how do you determine whether the culture is actually the right culture to embrace mentoring? Because it doesn't just take it's not a top-down thing. It has to be bottom-up as well. The acceptance of the people who are going to be involved in it to participate and to make it successful. So I'm listing down some challenges, right? I don't mean to be a devil's advocate or anything, but I think this is real. And we need to be able to convince and sort of address these things.
Yeah. So no matter what intervention learning and development or HR recommends, right, whether it is training, whether it's mentoring, whether it's coaching, the organization and the people within the organization need to want to do it, right? So I've seen so many people like attend classes or attend courses, and it's like, oh yeah, it's a day off work. I don't have to do work, but I'm not really interested in learning. It's like, I know this stuff already. So if you don't have the right mindset in terms of what the training, the mentoring, coaching, or whatever the intervention is, if you don't have the mindset of a growth mindset, I'm going to learn something, I'm going to try and implement it, I'm going to try and improve my behavior in the office or whatever it is, then it's not going to be successful. So if you have leaders in an organization that advocate people development or personal development, that encourages people to look, if you improve your performance, if you demonstrate capability, if you demonstrate initiative, these are the type of people who will have a longer career within the organization. So if there is a culture of that, and if you have leaders supporting all of these interventions, whether it's training, mentoring, coaching, then that will be one key to success.
What are some other things that you would consider as important when you're trying to do something like introduce a new strategy into an organization?
So regardless of what strategy it is, it could be a merger and acquisition, it could be creating a new product division, whatever it is, change management is going to be important. And at the end of the day, that change management needs to communicate to the person on the ground, what's in it for me.
What's in it for you?
And basically, they need to understand what is the compelling reason for change. Like, top management is saying that we have to embrace this training, or we have to create this new product, or we've got this new organization structure. But what is the compelling reason for change? Why are we doing it? And how does it impact me? Those are the two key things that need to be communicated in a lot of change management programs. Because if the person on the ground at the end of the day doesn't understand the compelling reason for change, or doesn't understand how it impacts them, then they're just going to say, okay, fine, whatever. If it hits me, it hit me. Otherwise, I'm just going to do my work or not do my work.
Yeah, or sit on the fence and wait for things to happen.
Exactly.
So key here, Kevin, what you're saying is that what's in it for me is a very key component in whether or not it's going to be successful.
Correct. But even before what's in it for me, a person needs to understand the why, and the why is that compelling reason for change. So let's just say we're going to merge with another organization. Why? Why is that so important that we merge with somebody else, right? And if people understand the why, then we can move on to what's in it for me, right? So there's always going to be impact. So whether it's creating a new product and everybody has to rally around promoting the new products, or whether it is a merger and acquisition, there will always be downsides, right? So downsides like, what happens to the existing products? If we're putting all of our attention on the new products, will our sales of our existing products fall? Or if there's mergers and acquisition, is there going to be duplication of jobs? And does that mean I'm going to be fired, right? So in both cases, there is always a what's in it for me, right?
Yeah.
And I think implementing change within an organization, those are the key components. But also I think if you have a good change program that addresses the compelling reason for change, or the why, or what's in it for me, if you have that clear communication and understanding, and people resonate with the learning that they're supposed to get out of it, then you will have momentum for change.
Right, Kevin, a quick question, because as you know, the podcast is definitely about mentoring and all. At what point in change management do you actually see that, mentoring is actually required in this whole cycle of change? I mean, are we looking at, the beginning of the change curve, or are we looking at the end of the change curve, or is it actually applicable and present throughout?
So it's part of the entire ecosystem, right? So when an organization has a change culture or a mentoring culture, you'll implement mentoring right from beginning to end, simply because you're going to have the opportunity to have people who have had experience, people who have gone through something similar before, to help the change team implement something. So you have a mentor mentoring the change team as an example, right? And then during the whole process itself, you may need leaders or middle managers to buy into that program. And that's when that whole mentoring portion comes into play. And then at the end of the day, the worker, the everyday worker, the people on the ground, the front line, they may need some mentoring as well as to the why this is happening, right? Because sometimes the message may filter down, but it may not filter all the way down to the front line. And sometimes the message may get diluted, right? And if the message gets diluted, you may not have that full understanding. And that's where the whole mentoring process comes into play. You are able to have a conversation with the frontline employees to understand what are the challenges and concerns, and then mentor them in terms of what would happen if they didn't get on board the change, right? What would it mean for them? So helping them understand that is one way of mentoring.
That's very interesting, because you're bringing it up as a mentor is able to then influence change agents. In your personal experience, right? Have you actually seen a company, for example, when going through change, also implement a mentorship program as part of this whole change strategy?
A lot of organizations don't call it mentoring.
Interesting.
They actually call it coaching, right? So many organizations have a change program that goes through, and they supplement that with a coaching program. But many organizations mix coaching and mentoring, and it's intermingled.
Right. But it tends to fall under the broad stroke name of coaching. Is that the truth?
So they use coaching a lot in terms of being able to support the change process. So you have the change program going through, you have a change process that's being rolled out, and change communication that's going through. But sometimes you need to have that one-on-one, that one person who people can go to in order to figure out their anxiety, their stress, or their confusion. So that process, most organizations call it the coaching process to support the change program that's going out. But usually in that, there is a bit of mentoring intermixed with the coaching as well. So many organizations don't use a pure coaching model, or they don't use a pure mentoring model. In some instances, mixing both interventions together is needed in order to help employees move forward, as well as enhance their development potential.
Yeah, the conflict of interest suddenly struck in my mind, right? And you sort of mentioned it before we actually had this podcast, about making sure that the managers or the leaders, right, are not compromised with the subordinates that they are looking after. So how in your mind, right, Kevin, would you actually address this if you were going to bring mentoring as a competitive strategy into organizations, so that they don't feel like there is conflict of interest in my deliverables vis-a-vis against mentoring or coaching as a strategy?
Right. So with mentoring, many organizations say, senior leaders, they can be the mentors to our employees.
Exactly.
So yes, there is valid reasons for doing that, right? Simply because you have people who have navigated the organization. They can help new employees or employees that are trying to build their careers. They can help them navigate the whole maze that is an organization today. So that is very valid. They also have experience within the organization. They know what's going on. They know the people, they know the products, they know the culture. So these are all the really, really good attributes in terms of having internal mentors. But the challenge that some employees face, or some organizations face, is that with an internal mentor, is trust going to be there? So am I going to reveal the darkest secrets that I have or the animosity that I have for some senior management? I don't think so, right?
No.
So how can you improve performance if trust isn't there? The other thing to look at in terms of external mentors is that sometimes if you have all the mentors who are senior management internally, what happens if they're busy? What happens if they have to do a business trip? Then invariably, the mentoring session will have to be cancelled or postponed or rescheduled, right? So where's the value in the mentoring program for the employee and the organization
Yeah.
then?
Hey, this is a good point. What's your take on remote mentoring?
So
I'm opening up a can of worms, I know.
So, okay, let's assume that it's internal mentors. Right?
Okay.
Remote. So we log into Zoom and have a chat, right? That happens. It's happened in America for so many years already.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah.
But I've always been
Pre-COVID.
Pre-COVID, okay. So that's a good statement to make. My question is because I'm under the impression that mentorship is really about the relationship, and it's very difficult, in my opinion, to foster that relationship via a Zoom call. I mean, this isn't, back then of dating hotlines where we'll try and have a relationship over the phone.
So did you know before COVID, the most popular video conferencing was Skype or Skype for Business?
Right.
Yes.
Right. All of that happens before, whether it's coaching, whether it's training, whether it's mentoring, whether it's quarterly business reviews, all of that happens. But I think now, post-COVID, everyone has gone through that era. Actually, we don't need to meet, right? And I've actually had mentors who were not in the same country, right? And even before Skype came along, we used to have those polycoms, right?
Yep.
So we would just go into a meeting room, jump on a polycom, call up my mentor in Hong Kong and have a conversation, right? So it's up to you to define what relationship you want. If you are open to explore, if you have a growth mindset, it doesn't matter whether we are face-to-face or whether it is over the phone or whether it's through Zoom. It's what you want to get out of it. Because at the end of the day, right, as a mentee, the mentor's not going to benefit. It's you that is supposed to benefit, unless there is reverse mentoring going on.
Yeah. I think to that point, right, I'd like to go back to something you said earlier as well. But I think the mentoring process itself benefits both the mentors and mentees. So and we'll talk about that later. But what I wanted to get at, right, if the organization, the business owner or the organizations decide that they want to have mentoring as implanted inside that space, right? What do you think they need to do to make sure that the mentor, the identified mentor, maybe the senior leaders, right, need to be equipped with? Because a lot of times, and this through personal experience, is that people identify mentors by chance sometimes, by destination, but it doesn't necessarily mean that person's a good mentor. So how do you address that?
So just like a trainer, right? Organizations, you'll make a good trainer, just teach everybody how to do things, right? So
That's a good analogy.
if you want people to have a good learning experience, right? If you want people to walk away with something that will help them in their jobs, whoever the trainer, whoever the facilitator is, should have gone through a trainer program, right? They should know what is the best way in order to impart knowledge on people. It's the same with mentors, right? Just because you're a SVP doesn't mean that you're a good mentor. Right?
Exactly.
So the L&D and HR department, if they have identified a person as a mentor, they should train them in mentoring skills or coaching skills or facilitator skills or whatever you want to call it, right? Equip the person to be able to deliver the mentoring that an employee or a high potential is expecting.
So let me throw a bomb to you, right? So you talk about formal and informal. In my mind, right, this is a personal, and I believe a lot of people feel the same way. Mentoring at its best is mostly informal.
Yes.
But what you're now saying is that there needs to be a formality around it at the very beginning to sustain the process.
Because if you are saying that we want to implement a mentoring program in an organization, organizations are structured. So in order for employees to feel the value of it, there has to be some level of formality, some level of structure in there. There is still plenty of informal mentoring that's going on, right? And that is still of value because you can have a conversation with somebody from an informal perspective who is not a formal mentor to you, but you still value their opinion, their experience, and their knowledge, right? So there is a place for informal mentoring. But as I said, if you are in an organization and want to kick off a program, right, whether it is coaching, whether it is mentoring, whether it is training, there has to be some level of structure in there because organizations need to measure that ROI.
I absolutely agree with what you said, Kevin. And one of the things is, maybe we talk a little bit about how we can introduce mentoring into an organization, right, who wants it as a comparative strategy. So what are the low-hanging fruits that they can pick out on and almost immediately see effectiveness in what they're bringing into the organization that they could actually go into straight away?
So what I've seen very effective very quickly, and it ticks lots of boxes, is mentoring for women to move into senior roles.
Okay.
So I've seen that implement very, very quickly because it's about, if the mentor is a male, it's about being an ally. If it is another senior female executive mentoring a high potential female, then that's supporting women getting up into the C-suite or executive roles. That can be implemented very quickly and results can be very, very quick on that simply because women want that opportunity. And the mentoring is about learning how to handle a room, how to handle yourself in a meeting, how to provide your point of view across in meeting, not to be afraid to speak up in meeting. Like you can implement that almost on a daily basis, right? So that is the fastest way that I've seen mentoring being successful.
No, I like that because you're not just dwelling on DEI, diversity, equity, inclusiveness, right? But you're also talking about a changing of a culture and the way we perceive the workforce.
Yeah.
It's a great place to start because you're ticking, like you said, right? You're ticking all the boxes, right, that you want. There may be even some others as well that could be low-hanging fruits, like, for example, workplace.
Yeah.
Remember we talked about the 70-20 rule?
Yeah.
70-20-10 rule, right? About 10 being and 20 there, and then coaching and mentoring actually cuts across all three spaces.
Yeah.
Maybe you want to elaborate that a little bit more.
So for all our HR colleagues out there, they will know the 70-20-10 rule. So basically in terms of people development or employee development, 70% of your development comes from learning on the job, right? 10% comes from formal training, whether it's classroom training, online training, or whatever, it's formal training. And 20% comes from coaching or mentoring or peer support groups. So that's the 20% that comes through. So for many organizations, they have finite budgets, right? You can't spend on every single person for every type of development there is.
Yeah.
So that's where the 70-20-10 rule comes into play because you literally do learn new skills by learning on the job, and that's where stretch assignments come into play, right? So if you're a high potential, you could be put onto a stretch assignment, given a mentor, and the mentor will help you with that stretch assignment to help you learn new skills, gain new knowledge, have variety in your work rather than doing the same thing day in, day out, right? And then, maybe you don't know specific technical skills on there, so we'll send you on a course to do that, right? So that whole realm of people development actually helps the individual because you are learning on the job, you're given the opportunity to stretch yourself, you're given a mentor or a coach, and then you are given technical training.
I see a dark side on that one actually. It's a way by which organizations actually make you do more work than you're allocated to do.
Ah, but that's the question of what kind of mindset you have.
Of course, I'm just saying that
Yeah.
it looks like a dark side to me. That's all.
Yeah.
A lot of this again is structure. We were talking about structure. We were talking about certain, the 20% is really on coaching and mentoring, right? So putting all these things together, I would like to just ask, what do leaders need to do to be able to successfully implement this? Is it more on mentoring themselves? Everybody has to have a 5-foot mirror and stare deeply into it every morning, or what needs to be done?
That's actually a very good question, because a lot of people believe that if you're asking me to have a mentor or a coach or whatever.
Yeah, what if I don't want one, right?
Correct. So there are some people who are very, very confident people. And there are some people that say, there's nothing wrong with me. I don't need a mentor. I don't need a coach.
I'm fine.
Yeah.
Correct. It's like, I'm absolutely perfect, right? So you can't force a person into a mentoring relationship or into a coaching relationship, or for that matter, going into training, because they might say, I know this already. It's just, I'm just going so I don't have to do work, right? You can't force people to do things that they don't want to do. And if people don't want to grow and develop, that's okay. That's a choice that they've made. Because how many times have you heard, it's like, I don't want a promotion. I'm happy doing this job.
Yep.
It's like, if I get promoted, I get more work, and I don't want more work. I want to leave at 5 o'clock. I want to go home to my kids. That's okay. Everyone is different. Everyone has different priorities. Everyone has different goals in their lives, right? It is a mechanism, coaching or mentoring or training, it is a mechanism to develop people. And if people want to be developed, if they want to have the opportunity to be promoted, if they want the opportunity to develop new skills so that they can grow outside the organization, that's up to the individual.
So what do leaders need to do to really get this going?
So leaders need to have a clear mandate or a clear understanding in terms of what it is that they want the mentoring program to do. Is it to just tick a box to say, yes, we have a mentoring program, in which case it's not going to be that successful? Or is it going to be, yes, we want to develop staff because we want to retain the staff. We want to retain the institutional knowledge. We want to give people variety. We want to give people the opportunity to grow and to try new things. So they need to have that vision, and together with HR, work on how best to implement a program in order to achieve that. So setting the direction, making sure that it is congruent with the mission, and also most importantly, right, if we're saying that some employees need to have mentors or coaches or go to training, what about the executives? Do they have their own mentors, coaches, and do they go for professional development? So you know how people say, it's like, well, you're not practicing what you're preaching. So maybe some of the executives need to do the same thing.
So would that be executive would be, then you'll be looking at people possibly of a higher rank or higher status than they have, bigger, longer experiences, expertise. So
Or-
would it, yeah.
Or it could be somebody outside the organization.
Yeah, so that would be an option as well,
Yeah.
that the organization should look at.
Yeah.
Now, I want to come back to the 70-20-10 rule. It says 20% on coaches and mentoring and mentors, right?
Or peer reviews.
Or peer reviews
groups.
and all that.
Yeah.
I believe that mentoring should actually cut right across the 70 side as well. Because a lot of it is about the workplace. A lot of it is about on-the-job stuff, right? And you're learning new skills possibly, and you're learning about the organization.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that, Kevin?
Yeah, when you are being put onto stretch assignments as an example, right? Stretch assignments,
That's a good
sometimes
point.
is something that is totally new to you, something that you've never done before, right? So I'll give you an example. So for me, I'm thrown into sales, which is something that I haven't done before, right? And it's like, okay, so how do we go about selling? How do we go about benefit selling? How do we go about consultative selling? Right? So I can go through all the training, which my organization did, but I had a mentor in terms of he was a regional sales manager, and he basically said, okay, pitch this to me. So I did the pitch, and he gave me a critique of everything that went wrong, right? So having somebody there to help you identify what you're not doing right, because I've had the training, right? I literally went through all the training, but unless you actually do the work or have somebody that is going to be honest enough to give you the feedback, you're not going to learn that much. Your learning accelerates after training when you have that mentor in order to critique you, because we all know that when we go on training courses, within the first 24 hours, retain 50% of what we've learned,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that's the value of having the mentor to lock in that learning.
I can see where that's coming from as well, because it sort of gives me an idea that it's not just piecemeal
Yes.
that we're talking about. When we do something like bringing a big piece like mentoring into an organization and expecting it to be embraced, right? You can't just do it one piece at
Correct.
a time. You got to think of the whole thing
Correct.
that is going to develop.
So that's why I'm saying, right, as a part of the learning and development interventions, right, training is one, mentoring is one, coaching is one, peer group reviews is another one. So how do you blend all of that into an organization? That's what we should be working on.
Any?
Yeah, well, I mean, you have a very prolific history of in the coaching world, I think, and also in the mentorship world as well. Would you be able to kind of summarize? I know this is a bit left field, but there was old school coaching and there's modern coaching. Do you see that in mentoring as well? Is there old school mentoring and is there modern mentoring methods that you're actually seeing now?
So I'm a very left brain person, right?
What's that left brain?
So I'm very process oriented.
Oh, process oriented. Okay.
So for me, there is a difference in terms of the benefits of coaching and for mentoring. But what I'm seeing more and more of is clients want a mixture of both, right?
Yes.
Because when you're doing coaching, the ultimate belief in coaching is that a person actually knows what they have to do or what decision they have to make, but there's something stopping them, right? So we use reflective practices to try and figure out what is stopping them, why don't they have the confidence, why they don't have clarity and things like that. So they innately know what they have to do, but we just have to help them get that clarity and confidence. Whereas with mentoring, a lot of people actually don't know, either because they don't have the experience, they don't have the skills, they've never done it before. And a mentor can help them shortcut because they can learn from the journey of the mentor.
Yes.
So that they can learn from
That's
their experience so that they don't have to make the same mistakes.
Right.
And the millennials and the Gen Zs want mentors because they all have that side hustle. They want to learn everything quickly so that they can apply to the side hustle and quit their jobs, right? I know that's a gross generalization, but that's a lot of the type of people that I've been working with.
Yeah.
So I think more and more clients are looking for both, right? Simply because if I don't know and you are coaching me and asking me all these questions, I can't actually tell you what decision I would make or why I'm fearing the decision or why I don't have clarity. So by giving them context, a little bit of mentoring, right? Then they can apply that to their specific situation and get the breakthrough that they're looking for.
Right.
So I think moving forward, yes, there is definitely a place for coaching. There is definitely a place for mentoring, but some clients are actually looking for both.
You're saying that clients are looking for both, but yet I don't hear people talking about it. They're asking for coaching, but they don't ask for mentoring. Is it because they don't they're not aware of the differences?
Yes, that's exactly it. So the everyday man doesn't know the professional difference between what a coach does and what a mentor does.
Enlighten us, please.
So as I was mentioning before, right, the coach is there to support a person in order to overcome challenges that they're facing. So whether it is in their personal life or whether it's in their professional career, or they just don't know what to do. They want clarity, they want confidence, they need to get rid of fear. Those are the type of things that people go to coaches for. And the coaches are there to ask them questions, right? In a coaching relationship, it is the client or the coachee that does all the heavy lifting. They answer all the questions because upon reflection, they will know the answer, right? The coach is there to support the employee or the client or the person so that they have a safe environment in order to explore things that may be blocking them, right? And that's why lots of questions are asked during coaching.
Right.
But sometimes a client will say, but what do other people do in this situation? And the reason why they're asking that is either because they've never had the experience or they want a different perspective. And that actually falls into the realm of mentoring and not actual coaching, because in coaching, coaches don't tell, right? In mentoring, mentors tell, right? So that's where the blurring of the lines start happening. And in many coaching relationships or coaching journeys, clients will invariably ask for, well, what do other people do? Or what do you think I should do? And things like that, right? Because they've reached a point where asking questions doesn't work for them anymore. In a mentoring situation, lots of people want to know what you have gone through. They want to leverage your wealth of experience. They want to leverage what you have gone through. Or because you're a wise owl, they want to ask, what would you do in my situation? So that's kind of an advice as well. Can you give me some advice, right? And that's what a lot of people go to mentors for, to get advice, to ask, what would you do in this situation? Tell me how you overcame this problem. So when you go to a mentor, it's more about the how to, what would you do in this situation? What would you do if you were in my shoes? How would you overcome this problem? Those are the type of questions mentees or clients go to mentors with.
So the gravitation towards...
Get it, Lawrence. I know you got something to say.
I have a lot to say. I have a lot to say.
Get it, Lawrence.
yeah. So you know this blurring of, in the past, right? Work was work. It was always the case. I could easily say pre-COVID time. But now what's happened is those lines are blurred. So you have family, you have work, and they're crossed. They're all mixed up together. So I can see the two mentoring and coaching pieces coming together to complement, because at times there will be overlaps, there will be compatibilities involved as well. So what do you think of that happening right now? Because and then you have all the various demographics, the Gen Z, the millennials, and then we still have the older folks like me, just the seniors, all bunched up together, right? And all thinking differently as well. So what do you think? How do organizations deal with this, and then work it as a strategy?
In my experience working with organizations and working with people with different mindsets, right? So what I have found is the different interventions in terms of coaching and mentoring. I've found that the younger generations or new workers or people who are entering the workforce for the first time, because they don't have the experience, the mentoring works exceptionally well for those people. Because if you're coaching them and you're asking them the question, how do you think you would do the next step, or what do you think you should do next? That's very difficult for a person who's never had any work experience, and you're asking them, what would you do next? That's where the mentoring comes in, because they learn from somebody who has had that experience. Yes, coaching comes into play because you're trying to expand their knowledge, give them some confidence to think independently and things like that. But a lot of people, when they go into the workforce for the first time, they are unsure. and they want to learn from somebody to give them some level of security to build their career within the organization. As we move up the corporate ladder, or as we move up the age scale, what I've found is that coaching works probably better than mentoring as we move up. Simply because people have opinions, people have had more experience, people have had conversations with peers in other industries or other companies, and they kind of know what they have to do, but they want some level of bounce back and push back and having a debate as to whether that is the right thing to do. And that's where the whole coaching realm comes in and is a little bit more successful. That's not to say that mentoring is not useful at a higher level, simply because you just have to look at Mark Zuckerberg and Steve Jobs, right?
Of course.
So when the Facebook was first launched and it wasn't doing so well, there's a famous story where Mark Zuckerberg went to have a conversation with Steve Jobs to ask for his opinion and things like that.
Yes, I read that.
And Steve Jobs told Mark Zuckerberg that, look, you need to figure out what is the mission of your organization, right? So that's not to say that, what do I call it, when you're successful or if you have a great product or whatever, that mentoring has no play and you only use coaching. There is a combination that also works for senior people as well.
Yeah. It actually is very interesting for me because I've always thought mentoring spreads right across, right? But now you actually put more sanity into the process and sort of zeroed in on first the young graduates that are coming in, and then the young employees that are going into the workforce as well. They're finding their way around. That's when mentoring will probably be most useful and most effective. And then the higher ups, the executives, maybe because of ego, they don't think they need to be mentored anymore.
Yeah.
They in fact, they like giving. Maybe you could share some success stories that these organizations that are thinking about going into using mentoring as a strategy in their organizations.
So as I mentioned before, one of the areas where I've seen it really successful is mixing it with a cause. So having more women in executive positions, I think that is a great cause in order to use as a platform for mentoring. Okay. And once an organization has gone through that specific mission or cause, right, then they can broaden it and open it up to the wider organization. And the way to communicate that is to communicate the broad picture of what mentoring is supposed to do for an organization, but actually communicate to say, we are going to pilot this. Phase 1 will be a pilot. And then we're going to start with the women and mentor women first. And the reason why you need to do that big picture and then come down to phase 1 is, if you just launch it to say, we're going to mentor women so that there's more women representation in senior management and C-suite, right? Then the other employees are going to feel left out, yes. Right? So why does one group get all the attention and everybody else doesn't? Which is why it's important to communicate the strategy of mentoring being implemented in an organization, but we're rolling out in phases, and the first phase is women in senior positions.
And how would organizations then upsell this to their employee, to the workforce and to the organization?
Whenever you roll out a program to employees, it needs to be in digestible chunks. So that's why I love the phasing portion, right? You don't roll everything out all at once because people will get confused. It's like, so am I entitled? Am I not entitled? When do I start the program? It's like, why am I not in this batch and all of that? So if you can implement it in phases, communicate in digestible chunks, be very clear and have recall. Recall is so important in change management.
Recall.
So recall in terms of like, you can produce mouse mats. So what do you call it? You've got reminders that this program is coming out. You can have posters in the pantry. You can create, what do you call it? Even one of these canisters, right? With all the branding that mentoring is coming, have you signed up or whatever.
Oh.
So having memory recall is important to remind people that these programs are around Are you availing yourself of it? Have you signed up for it? So that's one way to drive participation.
You're basically marketing mentorship
Yeah.
in that sense,
Internal
right?
marketing. It's all internal. Making sure that employees know that this program is available. This program is there for you to avail yourself of. Have you done it? Have you investigated? Have you had a conversation?
No, it's really good, Kevin. Thank you so much. It's some really golden nuggets inside what we've been discussing today, and some great advice to organizations and the business owners about how you can actually adopt mentoring as a strategy in your business and organizations for success, especially addressing the manpower concerns that have been raised as well. So thank you very much, Kevin. I really enjoyed the session. And for you viewers, if you want to get in touch with Kevin for more answers, what would they have to do to get in touch with you?
You can connect with me on LinkedIn. It's Kevin Khan SG. I kept it simple, so anyone can find me on LinkedIn.
So that being said, thanks again, Lawrence. Thanks, Kevin, so much. And thank you for tuning in. Thank you so much for listening. Speaking of nuggets that we got, it's time for dinner. It's time for us to wrap this up. All right, so we're going to see you in the next episode of the Mentoring Podcast. See you all. Bye.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
having me.
Bye-bye.
Bye.